Chapter 18. A Mysterious Guest. Morning brought no solution of the trunk mystery, so at Nancy's suggestion, Senora Zola called police on the case. Members of the household were questioned to no avail. The officers regarded the matter as of slight consequence and offered scant hope that the missing luggage ever would be recovered. "One thing after another has gone wrong since this trip began," the headmistress complained to Nancy, who, with her chums, had taxied to Alonzo Street with some of Nestrelda's clothing. It had been decided that, owing to the recent upset, the girl's trunk should remain at the Purdy home. "If this keeps on much longer, I'll be a nervous wreck," the woman complained. "You have had a trying time," said Nancy sympathetically. "But don't worry about the trunk. It wasn't anyone's fault. Certainly not yours." "Nancy is being generous," spoke up Bess. "I am the one to blame. I should have been more watchful when the cartero took away the trunk." "In that case, Treldy would have lost all her clothing," replied the Drew girl. "I really prefer it this way. Only half of mine are gone." While Nancy made light of the affair, she really was worried. Already she was running short of fresh clothing. George and Bess were glad to give her anything she needed, but she did not like to impose upon them. She hoped her trunk soon would be returned, yet reason told her that here was a mystery which would not be solved easily. Whoever stole that trunk did it deliberately, she told herself. The person thought he was getting Nestrelda's luggage. But even when the mistake is discovered, it's unlikely the trunk will be returned to me. Making up her mind not to let her own difficulties dampen the pleasure of her chums, Nancy insisted upon a sightseeing tour. An enjoyable time was spent in a tour of the city, and by the end of a few hours, the girls began to get the feel of the attractive place and pick up a few Spanish phrases. They wandered through various buildings and museums, concluding their day with tea at a charming little restaurant. "Are you girls dreadfully tired?" Nancy asked, as they engaged a waiting taxi a little later. "My feet hurt me," confessed George. "Otherwise, I have plenty of pep. What do you suggest?" "Nothing very exciting. I thought I'd like to stop at Alonzo Street and talk with Treldy a few minutes." "George and I have energy left for that," laughed Bess. "Oh dear," she sighed. "I've eaten too much again. I'll never get thin in this country with its rich foods." The girls found Nestrelda at home. To their surprise, she seemed to have been waiting for them. "I was afraid you might not get my message," she said, leading them into a room which she shared with another Laurel Hall girl. "Message?" repeated Nancy. "We have received none. Of course, we've not been home all day." "I sent word for you to come here as quickly as you could." "Then you've recovered the trunk!" exclaimed Bess, her face brightening. "No, but I may have a clue." "What have you learned, Treldy?" inquired Nancy eagerly. "This may have no connection with it, but I thought you would like to hear it. Tell me, Nancy, are you acquainted with a man named Harry Halifax?" "No, I have never heard of such a person." "He was here today to see me and said he knows you." "That's strange. I am certain I've never heard of anyone by that name, but he might be a friend of my father." "I didn't know the man either," Nestrelda went on. "He claimed to be acquainted with my stepfather. He said he had heard I was here and thought he would call. Yet it struck me he came here for one purpose, and that was to get your address, Nancy." "Did you give it to him?" No. Somehow his manner made me suspicious, so I told him I would try to find out where you were staying. He agreed to come back here tomorrow afternoon. Good. You did just the right thing, praised Nancy warmly. I should like to meet the man. Then why not come here tomorrow? He will arrive around 2:00. I'll be here, promised Nancy. Don't fail to keep him until I arrive. En route home, she discussed the situation with George and Bess. They were inclined to share her opinion that the man might have had something to do with the missing trunk. My name was on the stolen luggage, Nancy pointed out. So by this time, the thief has probably figured out that the other trunk is in my possession. You believe the man will try to make an exchange? Questioned Bess thoughtfully. He may. At least he'll attempt to learn if I have Nestrelda's trunk. Girls, I have an idea. You're looking at us with a most speculative gleam in your eye, declared Bess mournfully. What would you like for us to do this time? I'd like you to go with me to Alonzo Street tomorrow. Keep out of sight during the interview. Then, when Mr. Halifax leaves, shadow him. But we might get lost in Buenos Aires, protested George. It's such a big city, and so few people seem to speak English. We'll be glad to do it, Nancy, declared Bess instantly. I was responsible for losing that trunk, and the least I can do is help recover it. Arriving at Mrs. Purdy's home just before dusk, the three girls went to their room to dress for dinner. It's my turn to have the tub first tonight, Nancy laughed, seizing a towel and making for the bathroom. Save us a little hot water, Bess called after her. The ancient pipes clanked and groaned as Nancy began filling the tub. 15 minutes later, the water could still be heard running full force. Nancy has forgotten, complained George good-naturedly. The tub must be ready to overflow. Bess went to the door and rapped on it. If you don't shut that thing off, there won't be any water left in South America. The taps closed immediately. Si, señorita, called Nancy in her best imitation of Manuela. I was daydreaming and just forgot. She hurried as fast as she could. Soon she was out of the bathroom, her hair a mass of bright ringlets from the steaming it had received. I'll be surprised if there's a drop of hot water left, George greeted her. You must have gone to sleep in the tub, Nancy. I was watching someone through the window. I became so interested I forgot to turn off the tap. Mrs. Purdy, I suppose, said Bess indifferently. No, it was that young man, Harold Sand. George stared at her chum in surprise. Why, I haven't seen him since he moved in yesterday morning. He's kept out of our way. On purpose, it seems to me, added Nancy. That's why I was especially interested. What was he doing? Eating a lunch down by the river. It's queer he doesn't take his meals with the family, George remarked. Mrs. Purdy tells me he stipulated he must always dine alone. As soon as I finish dressing, I'm going down there and talk with him, announced Nancy, vigorously brushing her hair. Do you think that would be wise? Bess asked significantly. Oh, I think so. You might accomplish nothing and only succeed in frightening him away. That's true, Nancy admitted reluctantly. I've thought from the first that Harold Sand was avoiding me for a particular reason. It might be better to leave him entirely alone while I do a little investigating. From the window, the three girls could see the young man. As they watched, he picked up his lunch basket and walked along the riverbank. He certainly is a mysterious character, remarked Bess. Several times I've spoken to Mrs. Purdy about him, but she seems reluctant to tell me very much. I've noticed the same thing, nodded Nancy. It's as if she were trying to keep a secret from us. Could it be possible that she is shielding him? End of chapter 18.